Hello, this is a very short tutorial on how to make a sine wave on a graph using Labview. So again, I'm going to need a graph, so I'll come over here to my modern palette and drop down a waveform graph. And then let's maybe drop down a couple of numerics. I need the number of points in my sine wave. And how about the amplitude as well? Actually, probably going to want the frequency. Well, let's just start with this and see what we get. Okay, so so if I come over here to my block diagram, now I've got my amplitude, my number of points. I'm going to set amplitude to the side for now. And so what I can do is I can drop down a for loop, because again, we're going to need a loop, and we'll create, we'll use auto indexing to create a vector that will feed into our waveform graph. And I'm going to need the sine function because that's what I'm after, and that's located in mathematics, and then elementary trigonometric functions, and sure enough the first one is sine. So if I come down here, the I is the loop iteration, so this guy will be 0, 1, 2, 3, and he'll count up. The first thing I might be tempted to do would just be to wire this straight up, and I'll have a running DI here. I can run this, and let's see. And we had no points running, so that was a pretty classic mistake. I'll need to run this thing. So if I put 0 in there, the loop runs 0 times, and sure enough, we don't get anything. So in this case, I put in 100, and I got a vector back with 100 points, but it's more than one cycle, and my sine wave looks really lumpy. And so the reason is that I put the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3 into sine function, and that's not 0, 1, 2, 3 degrees, that's 0, 1, 2, 3 radians. And so if I wanted one cycle for all of my points here, then what I'm going to need is I'm going to need to divide the total number of points in the waveform by 2 pi. And so I can go into to my numeric palette, and sure enough there are some constants, and there's a pi and a 2 pi constant, so I can actually just grab the 2 pi constant and take him and numeric mathematics divide him by n, which in this case will be 100, and then multiply that. Need to delete a wire here by I, and let's see what we have now. Sure enough, I have one cycle now that that is of an amplitude 1, and so sure enough, if I wanted to change my amplitude, well, what I can do then is I can come in here with my amplitude function, drop down another numeric. Oops, that's a divide, that's not what I want. Another trick here, if I come over to a numerics, I'll actually be able to right-click, just pull up the numeric palette directly, so that's a nice shortcut. Another deletion to insert my numeric, and you notice that if I multiply a scalar by a vector, it's actually just doing that single scalar times every element, and so sure enough, if I make the amplitude 4, now I have a sine wave single cycle of, I'm sorry about that, now I have an single cycle amplitude 4, and we should be all set. If I wanted to change the frequency, well, then we're going to have to come in here and change the scaling in this multiply node. Anyway, so we now have our, it's a quick tutorial on how to make a graph of a sine wave using auto indexing.